Okay, lab 13, we're going to be setting up our single sign-on. So we have to do a little bit of housekeeping first, because we have to verify that a few things are corrected first. We're going to be navigating the Active Directory users and computers. So administrative tools, Active Directory users and computers. We want to make sure a few things are created first. We're going to be adding a new user called vAdmin. It doesn't really matter the first or last name, as long as the user the login name is vAdmin, we are good. Verify it's part of vita.local, and set our password for our lab. Uncheck password has to be changed. In my environment, I don't want the password to expire or users to change it. Double check within your environment to make sure that you're doing the appropriate boxes. And so we should see John Doe. We should also see ESX admin, because that's the security group that we are using to manage everything. So let's go ahead and add our Joe Doe to our ESX admin group. So once you find it, click on it. If you don't see it, go ahead and create it. And we're going to add in our domain admins and our Joe Doe. That way it's administrator, domain admins, and Joe Doe. Those are the members that we want. So once you've added them, let's go ahead and try connecting to our ESXi machine. To our vCenter machine. It should be the IP address of vCenter, port 9443. So let's try logging in with our Joe Doe account, our vAdmin. At vita.local. It should fail. It should not allow you to, because we haven't set that account up to be able to manage anything. So let's go ahead and log in to our vCenter using our administrator at vSphere account. Because right now, even though we have Active Directory, they're not set up to work with one another. So once we get in, you may notice a expiring license key. Don't worry about that. Next week we'll actually be updating our license key. You may also see 2 alarms or 3 about space. That's okay. For us, we're going to go to administration. First thing we have to do is set a configuration so that our vita.local domain is recognized. It may load our profiles or policies tab first. Click on identity sources, and we're going to be setting up a new identity source. We are setting up Active Directory, integrated Windows Authentication. We are on the domain controller, so it should see vita.local. And it should take a second. Notice it's not our default domain. Let's go ahead and make that our default domain. That way we'll be logging into that domain by default. Once that happens, we want to go and double check a few items. So if you can, navigate to users and groups and select the appropriate domain. We want to be looking to our Vita domain, and all users on our Vita domain should be listed here. But notice not our groups. So once we see our user populated, we want to actually set our users the right to manage vCenter, because if we added them, they can see one another, but we haven't assigned any permissions yet. So we're going to navigate back to home, and we're going to expand out our vCenter, expand out our vCenter servers, and select our appropriate vCenter server that we want to configure, and that's our vCenter.vida.local. We should navigate to our Manage tab, and then to Permissions. This is what permission the user has to actually our vCenter server. We want to add in our new user group. So hit the plus button, and now we have the ability to see our users and groups. Make sure that the appropriate domain is selected, vc.vida.local. That is our local account. That's not our Vida domain. Select Vida. That is our Active Directory domain. And that should queue or query the domain controller for all the appropriate users and groups. It may take a second or two, but find our ESX admin user. The vc.vida.local, that's our vCenter server. While that's part of the vida.local domain, there are local accounts on it. So that's why it gets tricky. So again, make sure that Vida is our domain and select the appropriate group. Add the appropriate group. You can check names just to verify if you typed it. When you're ready, click OK. What role do they have? Right now, they have no access. So we're actually going to change it by giving them administrator access. That way you can add multiple roles, and add multiple users and groups, and you can select which roles they're going to have. If you do not propagate the children, then these logins won't be allowed on the children permissions. If you're trying to log in locally to ESXi 1 or 2, they won't let the administrator or vAdmin log in because they're not on those children permissions. That's why we allow propagate the children. If you want to see what children they're propagating to, you can click on the View Children button, and that should be anything within our vida.local training folders. And that's both of our ESXi's, both of our virtual machines, everything. So once again you verify your user, verify the role, click OK. And we should be allowed to log in with that account. It takes a little while for the account to be added. Once you see it, let's go ahead and test it. We're going to test it by logging out. And once we logged out, let's go ahead and try logging back in using our vAdmin at vida.local and the appropriate password. So that should be vAdmin at vida.local with our appropriate password. One of our next labs will be actually using our Windows Session Authentication, so we don't have to worry about typing in a username or password, but that's where we're going to next. Once you typed it in, click on Login. As long as you set the correct permissions, it should let you in. Once you're logged in, to make sure that you're truly logged in, look at your inventory. Go to vCenter, and you should be able to see everything. If you don't, even if you were able to log in, but you're not able to see anything within the inventory list, you're not really logging in. Vmware vCenter is very funky. You can only see the inventory list if you have the appropriate permissions. And sometimes it's a pain to get to work. So So now that we're logged in as vAdmin, what can we do? They should be administrators, so let's see if we can do any of the administrative tasks. But you notice single sign-on options are no longer there. That's because single sign-on is only allowed for our administrator at vSphere.local currently. We're going to have to set that up so that it's additional users. But that's a later lab, so I want to thank you guys and have a great day. So one thing that always annoyed me was, how do I get this box checked? If you mouse over it, it will tell you you have to download and install the client integration plugin to enable support for Windows Session Authentication. But where do we download it at? So you may see is our normal login window, but if you expand it out all the way, download the client integration plugin at the very bottom left. We have to install the plugin first. That gives us those options. It gets really weird. In order to install the plugin, you cannot be in Internet Explorer, so go ahead and close out of it, and then go ahead and reinstall the plugin. It's still waiting for IE to show that it's closed. Took a minute there, but once it recognizes it's closed, click on retry and it should go away. And just do a normal installation for the integration tool. Accept the license agreement, select the pathway to install it, and that is it. Once it installs, we should be able to go back to IE, type in the appropriate address, and you will notice that you may get a remote console plugin. Do allow for it. Don't just click allow, but allow for this website. You may always have an always allow option. That's the more appropriate option to choose. And you'll notice we can now use our toggle button. This will use whatever account you log into the virtual environment with. It will use those credentials to log in. I'm logged in as an administrator under Vita. Administrator. So it'll use your Windows session password to log in. You also will get a, do you want to allow this? Yes, we want to allow for it. If you were logged into vCenter, the actual virtual machine, vCenter, or our domain controller with vAdmin, you would be allowed single sign-on with those as well. And again, notice it let us in. If we double check our inventory list, everything is there. So everything is where it should be working. Alright, thank you.